Hey everybody, it's Nick Millspaul. We often have a very tough time acknowledging that we just aren't good enough. It can be very difficult to actually sit down and truly take responsibility for that and just move forward. This is what I discussed recently in part one of this series. And in part two today, I want to talk about comparing your abilities to others. When I was a kid, I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I mean, what kid that plays baseball as a kid doesn't want to do that? But it made a lot of sense for me since I was the best in my area. I was the best, in my league. However, one thing that I began to do as a kid was I began to watch the Little League World Series. I figured these guys are the best in the world at my age as an 11 and as a 12-year-old. So if I want to be the best, I need to see how good the best really is. So as a 12-year-old, I could throw hard or as hard or harder than anybody that we faced. I threw about 68 miles an hour, and if you know anything about Little League, that's pretty hard as a 12-year-old. This gave me a feeling that, I was truly the best. Therefore, I was going to make it to the major leagues. Okay, does that sound familiar? If you're the best on your team, then you're going to play varsity basketball. You're going to be the quarterback just because you're the best in Pee Wee football. Does all that sound? Hopefully that sounds familiar. However, once I decided to watch the best, I realized that the best was throwing 78 to 76 or 76 to 78 mile an hour. I was 10 miles an hour off. So I had a couple choices. I could just give up the dream, or I could choose to work to catch up. And so that's what I did. Okay, so I knew that I had some catching up to do, but the most important thing was I knew where I stood. That if I was going to maintain that dream, I knew where I stood against the rest of everybody out there. Okay? So by the time I was a senior in high school, I was able to throw 87 mile an hour from the outfield. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, what I did was I ended up looking up what guys my age were throwing that were getting drafted. And let me just tell you that that's not the only tool that scouts are looking at, but I'm just comparing my abilities. And, they were throwing anywhere between 94 and 96 miles an hour. So I was still 7 to 9 mile an hour off, for that one tool set to be able to be considered somebody that could get drafted out of high school. And so, I was still behind, but I knew where I stood and how hard I needed to continue to work. So it's because of this that I always had a realistic point of view of where I stood, but knew that there was action that needed to follow in order for me to reach my full potential. I didn't cast out this huge dream that didn't come backed up with proper action, and then I didn't blame it on other people when I wasn't when I realized I just wasn't good enough to make it to the major leagues. I didn't blame it on anybody else. I was happy that I ended up playing Division I baseball because I worked hard for that. Don't make that same mistake that many people are making. Okay, if you have a goal of playing college sports, see where those that are currently playing, see where they're at, see what how hard they throw, how high they jump, how fast they are, see what abilities that they have, and then find out where were those guys at when they were 12, 14, 15 years old. That way you have something to gauge where you stand currently and keep up with that along the way. So I hope this is helpful for you today. This is part two. I'll be discussing more tomorrow. But just remember, if you have a goal, never let off the gas. See where you stand amongst your competitors, amongst those who have been there before you. And I promise that'll be a great step to reaching your full potential. I'll talk to you soon.